This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure that I remind you guys, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of whenever we drop our latest stuff. If you could, please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It would be very appreciated. It's very helpful. Allows us to see what you guys like, dislike, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we are also on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are, we are, so we can talk, we can chat, we can discuss, we can debate. And boy, were the Knicks once again the talk of the NBA world, to a degree. Obviously, they're not more like important than like the Bucks or whatever, but there was quite a buzz for the Knicks game last night, and not just because they found a way to hold on and beat the Rockets, which was impressive in its own right. R.J. Barrett, after playing poorly for most of the fourth quarter, though he played well leading up to that, he just wasn't that good in the fourth quarter. At the game winner, the Rockets weren't able to complete the comeback, I should say, because they made a comeback, which is a completely separate story. I don't know. You shouldn't need a comeback against the Knicks, even if it's in New York. But on most nights, that would have been like, people would have been talking about the Knicks beating the Rockets. But because of circumstances off the court at the Knicks game, no one even really mentioned it. I mean, the Rockets should have been getting slandered, rightfully so, for losing to the Knicks in disappointing fashion. I mean, they're getting blown out. The fact that they made it close, which has more to say about the Knicks than it does about the Rockets, just because it was completely obvious that the Knicks were going to let them back in that game. I would not imagine many of you have, but if you've watched any Knicks game this year, you knew that, all right, they're definitely going to blow this lead, but how soon is it going to take? How long is it going to take? And luckily, they were able to hold it off for a full quarter, because I think the Rockets cut it to 6 with 11 minutes left in the game, and I was like, oh yeah, now the Rockets going to be up by 10 by the time this game's over. But they didn't. But again, that's not the main point of this discussion. The main point was that beloved Knicks Supers fan Spike Lee had a viral moment last night, and not in a good way. There was video of, I don't know who took the video or why the video was taken. That's a completely separate point. But there was video of him arguing with security. He was trying to get into a seat. He wasn't being let in. There was some yelling back and forth. He was talking about arrest me like I'm Charles Oakley. It was all bad. Originally people thought he just wasn't allowed into the game, which would have been bad in its own right. But then obviously it came out that there was some sort of misunderstanding, and he was actually allowed in the game eventually. But there were some issues before that, and then there was a little back and forth. And Spike Lee goes on to First Take today to talk about the situation and what happened. And just like I said, continue the conversation around it. Talk about how he was treated. Talk about how he's done watching Knicks games for the season. And yeah, so then that happened. Because like I said, he was on First Take with Stephen A. Obviously, who was a noted Knicks a Knicks supporter. Unfortunately for him, because obviously it hasn't given him much happiness the past few years. But yeah, so on First Take today, earlier today, this is recording Tuesday night, Spike said that he's not coming back till next year. He's done with the Knicks games. This is out, like I said, after the comments. After what happened the night before. And Nick's, like I said, Nick's spokesperson said that, like I said, there was this issue with using the wrong arena. Apparently, Lee and Nick's owner could be seen shaking hands at halftime of the game. And like obviously Spike Lee was in his silent seat as normal and watched the win. Spike Lee said that the version of events that Knicks tried to tell was a spin on what actually happened. Said that he's been coming into the same entrance to the Garden for 28 years. All 28 years that he's had season tickets. Lee specifically said he took issue with the Knicks saying that he and Dolan was socializing at halftime. It wasn't really a handshake. He said when he came over, I didn't even get up right away. He went on to say that I'm being harassed by James Dolan, and I don't know why. Like I said, he stated that he's not coming back to the Knicks, in any more Knicks game for the rest of the season at least. So then the Knicks, obviously, of course, they have to respond and put out their own statement in which they said, hold on, let me see if I had it. That was weird. Okay, so they said, and I quote, "The idea that Spike Lee is a victim because we have repeatedly asked him to not use our employee entrance instead use a dedicated VIP entrance, which is used by every other celebrity who enters the Garden, is laughable. Not a great start. It is disappointing that Spike would create this false controversy to perpetrate drama. He is welcome to come to the Garden anytime via the VIP or general entrance, just not through our employee entrance, which is what he and Jim agreed to last night when they shook hands." Now, my thing is, actually, I'll get to that in a second, but, so Spike Lee apparently called in to the Michael K show after that, and he said that he called the statement for the Knicks a bull-faced lie, and asked about the picture. He said, "My head was spinning. I never had this happen to me ever by the Garden, so I didn't even realize that someone was speaking. I don't remember shaking his hand." He then added that was a setup. They set the whole thing up. The whole thing was arranged. Look at that picture. It's from the roof. The clock above the basket is in the shot. And he told ESPN earlier Tuesday that he had already had his ticket scanned at the employee entrance on 33rd Street, so he refused to leave, fearing that he wouldn't be allowed back in. He said he told security to arrest me like my brother Charles Oakley, which is what you could hear on the video, when that was a very famous situation back in, I think, 2017 when Charles Oakley got escorted out of the arena, which is kind of crazy. It was kind of crazy then, not any less crazy now. Hold on. So he said arrest me like they did Charles Oakley. Judge dismissed Oakley's lawsuit against Dolan and MSG last month. He said the incident with Lee, whom he has known since his time as a player in New York, was another bad scene for NBA fans. This is Charles Oakley speaking. Spike means a lot to New York, all the boroughs. He's a game changer for the black movies, black superstars. And you're cheating the people of New York when you do something like that to a New York native. I know he was born in Georgia, but he's been here long enough. So that caused a little bit of a debate, that whole situation, just because it was like a two-sided thing. So basically, I don't want to say two-sided because it's not necessarily that black and white, but from what it sounds like, the Knicks, for whatever reason, changed their policy on how people enter the arena. Apparently, they didn't tell Spike Lee. I think that's another thing he said in the video, was like he wasn't notified of this new gate switch or entrance switch that he's supposed to partake in. So then there's that. There's a little disagreement there, and then it was somewhat resolved because he got to a seat, but obviously, it's a he said. Well, not he should. He said kind of situation where like you don't really know what the truth is because I don't know how reliable of a source James Dolan is, and then obviously Spike. Not that I'm saying Spike would lie, but it's just you very rarely do people make themselves look poorly in these type of situations. But the weirdest thing for me was just that how many people just openly support their franchise. Like, you saw many people, and James Dolan has done a lot to not really warrant that much leeway from just any fan base, not even just his own fan base, just in terms of like the way, like I said, the way he treated Charles Oakley, the way he's handled other things, the way he's kicked people out for chanting things about him selling the team or wearing things about him selling the team, all that stuff. And this is not an uncommon thing for him to do. So it's weird to see Knicks fans defend him, just be like, oh yeah, Spike should have used a different entrance, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, maybe he should have. That's fair. But, I mean, it's Spike Lee at the end of the day. He's one of, if not the biggest Knicks fans out there. He's always at the games, always sitting courtside, always supporting. Even when the team's been sorry the last few years, he's still going out there, still showing up in his seats. So even if, like, all right, even if you could have just been like, hey, Spike, they claim they told him, but we don't really know if they told him or not. Hey, Spike, you're not supposed to use this entrance. Like, we're going to let it slide, but, like, hey, next time, can you go here or go there? That's all they have to do. Just keep it simple. It doesn't even sound like when Dolan came over, he apologized. I think the quote that he said was when he was told, like when Spike was told about it, he basically said like, now you know, instead of being like, hey, sorry that happened, it shouldn't have happened like that, blah blah. He's just like, hey, well, now you know, don't use that entrance anymore. And that's the weird thing about the employee entrance is like if it appears, or according to Spike, he claims that his ticket was scanned. If it's an employee entrance, and Spike Lee's been going through this entrance. And going to the arena for all these years. So the brothers know who, like, the people working there know who he is. If it was really an issue, why would they scan his ticket at all? Like, that's the thing that's been kind of weird to me on this. Is like, hey, look, if it was an issue, then let it be an issue. Just be like, hey, Spike, you can't come in here, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, the fact they scanned his ticket and then seemed like they were going to let him in, then, like, oh, actually, nah, we can't let you in. It just seems kind of odd to me. And also, like, the statement was, I mean, the statement... To use a word from the statement, it was actually laughable, in my opinion. Just because, again, Spike Lee's been a valiant supporter of the Knicks for what he thinks he's been saying. He's been sitting courtside 28 years now. Like, why would you treat a loyal fan like that? And I mean, you can when you're James Dolan, and you can do whatever you want. And that, I mean, we don't know exactly who wrote that PR statement, but I mean, you can. If you told me James Dolan himself wrote that statement, I would believe you. That's just kind of the way it comes off. It just comes off as kind of smug and arrogant and not that remorseful for it treating. I mean, you would think that as a company or as a team, you'd want your fans to have the best experience possible, and it seems like that statement doesn't really give off that message. Just like, hey, you screwed up, shame on you. And anything you say bad about us is wrong. And I'm like, the Knicks haven't exactly been a model franchise over the past, for most of my lifetime. I'm 24. Most of my lifetime, the Knicks have been dysfunctional. So to make it seem like someone complaining about the things that happened to them at a Knicks game is laughable is, again, laughable in its own right. Like, how do you, like... Again, it's just like weird because it's not just like, and I think that's what make it worse to me is that's not just it was any fan. It's Spike Lee, again, a guy who's an avid supporter of the team, always there, always supporting, always standing up, always cheering, always doing that stuff. He's the kind of fan you would want. Cause, obviously there's a lot of famous. There's a lot of famous people that come to games in New York or LA or whatever, but they just come every now and again. They're not out there every night. Spike's been a guy who's been out there through the good times, through the bad times, ups, downs, especially, like I say, mainly downs the last few years. And it hasn't deterred him from coming. And then this is how you treat him. And then, like I'm saying, I understand why he would be like, I'm not coming back for the rest of the season, just because why should I be treated like that? Even if, okay, say he did make a mistake and he did use the wrong entrance. All right, that's fine. But one, if you're going to change the entrance, you should at least tell the guy who's been using supposedly the same entrance for the entire time he's been there. And two, just why make a big deal out of it? And then why badmouth the fan? Again, I guess, they don't really care. They already got his money. So it is what it is at this point. But, like, why badmouth your loyal supporters? Because, without them, you have the team's not worth what it has been worth. Like, you need the fans to support the team in order for the team to be successful, in order for your business to stay, or in order for the team to stay as valuable as it has been over these years. Like, without fans like Spike or other supportive New York fans, the Knicks would be nothing. The Knicks would be anybody. If they were situated in, not Iowa. Say they were situated in, they could easily be the Cavs, like pre and post LeBron. The only thing keeping them somewhat relevant is the fact they play in New York. Because as dysfunctional as they have been, if they were literally located anywhere else, no one would even talk about them. No one would care about anything Knicks related. It's just the fact that they play in New York has kept them semi-relevant in the national eye, at least, over these last 20, since Patrick Ewing left. The only thing keeping them relevant is being in New York. So, you would think the people that have been there this whole time, you would at least want to treat them right. But no, the Knicks are going to be the Knicks and do very Knickish things, and treating their fans, especially their loyal fans, poorly is a very Knick thing to do, in my opinion. So, none of this shocked me, but the shocking thing was just the fact that people were supporting or siding with James Dolan. Because, James Dolan is not the person you should side with. I don't care what the situation... I do care what the situation is, because, again, if Spike Lee were actually 100% in the wrong, then I understand you siding with James Dolan, but just to be like, oh, Spike Lee should have known, or Spike Lee shouldn't have done this, or Spike Lee shouldn't have done that, or hey, he's making a big deal out of this for no reason, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, when did James Dolan... this is why James Dolan will never sell the team. Because it doesn't matter what he does or doesn't do, people will find a way to defend him. And that's part of the bad thing about sports fandom, is that very regularly you can see people supporting the people that don't need your support. Like, there are a lot of fan bases that don't do things properly, and they get away with it because of the fact that they know that their fans will literally support anything that they do. And this is case in point. Again, was Spike Lee in the wrong? Maybe. Like I said, I don't know what he was and wasn't told. We won't really ever know that, honestly, unless there's like some receipts that come out. So, like I said, maybe he was told and maybe he just chose not to do it. Whatever. At the end of the day, to just act as if the Knicks handled this the right way is mind-boggling. Because, again, that PR statement was a disaster, in my opinion. How do you call someone's gripe laughable when it seemed like it was a legitimate gripe? If I'm using the same entrance for 20 plus years, and you randomly change the entrance on me, and don't tell me, and they get mad at me for not knowing that I should use a different entrance, how does that seems like a legitimate gripe, in my opinion. That's not laughable at all. It seems legitimate. But because the Knicks, it's laughable. And I'm just saying, people will find a way to support, and people found a way to support. And I was like, that was just odd to me. James Dolan doesn't deserve that level of... I can't think of the word. I'm trying to think of the word. But he doesn't deserve that level of just blind loyalty and blind support. Just be like, hey, the Knicks are right in this, Spike Lee's wrong. No. Come on, guys. How are we just openly siding with James Dolan here? That sounds kind of nuts. When you say it out loud, it sounds kind of nuts. I'm defending the actions of James Dolan. Seems a little crazy. Especially in this scenario where you think the fans... it's not exactly customers always right situation, but again, the fans are the most important part of sports. Without them, the sports would... Not they would cease to exist, but they wouldn't be as big and as profitable as they are now. So, again, in theory, you want to treat your fans right, and the Knicks just didn't seem to do that in this scenario. But, hey, to each their own. After this next break, we're going to come back, talk a little more basketball. The Pelicans caught the big L tonight to the Wolves, who I don't think played Cat, so that's kind of a disaster. But there was a conversation we had, there was a conversation had when I was at work earlier today that got me thinking that people really believe Zion can win the Rookie of the Year without getting the 8 seed. That's a thing? People really think that? I was like, I surely hope not, but it seems as if people really think that. So I'm going to tell you why that is wrong, incorrect, in my own personal opinion, and I'm going to tell you how I think the Rookie of the Year should play out. So we'll discuss all that stuff right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Pelicans caught the big L at home to the Wolves, who, like I said, again, did not have Cat. Malik Beasley was out there doing his thing, had 28 points, 11 of 13 shooting. D'Lo had 23. I'm pretty sure that's James Johnson, formerly of the Miami Heat. Yes, that is James Johnson, and 19 off the bench. Juan Hernan-Gomez. I think it might be Juancho, but I don't know. It's just on the ESPN app. They just call him Juan, so I'm gonna call him Juan. Juan Hernan-Gomez also added in a solid 16. Zion did his thing again, 25, 8 and 3, 10 and 19. Drew Holiday played good. Lonzo played well. Most of the guys play well, but when you give 139 points, probably not gonna win very many games. So, as it currently stands, the Pelicans sit at the 10th spot? 11. Ooh, 12th. Yikes. 4 games back of the Grizzlies, who again are under 500, but still 4 games back of them. They are behind. They are half a game tied for. Not half a game. They are half a game behind 3 teams who are currently tied for 9th. The Portland Trailblazers, Sacramento Kings. Shout out to the Kings. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're trying to make a push, and the Spurs, who no one will see the Spurs in the playoffs. But hey, you never know. So, like I said, I thought the Pelicans just have to get through this rough stretch. This Wolves game was a game I thought they probably could and should win, especially when you have games against the Heat, who have been hit or miss, the Kings, the Jazz, Clippers, Spurs, Grizzlies, Kings again. They have some. I guess after the Clippers, they don't play any team that's in the playoffs except the Grizzlies, who again they're going to need to beat in order to get into the playoffs. So, like I said, the schedule lightens up a little bit after these next 6 games. Because this next 6 they play the Mavs, Heat, Wolves, Kings, Jazz, and Clippers and Hawks. So maybe the next 5 games. And after that, they should be able, if they put it all together, to make a run. But hopefully they're not too far out of it by then for it to matter. But regardless, my belief has always been that the Rookie of the Year should go to whoever gets the 8 seed between Ja Morant and Zion. Mainly because Zion will not have played enough games. So I think. Where are the Pelicans? The Pelicans are currently 26 and 35, which is 61 games. So that's 21 games left. Zion has played in all of 15 games. So if he plays in every single game left the rest of the season, I think he'll play 36, 37 games. Because I don't know if the game today is counted in this one or not. So playing max 36, 37 games. Which, even though his stats are sensational, he's averaging 24 points, almost 7 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 50 something, He's shooting 59% from the field, which is absurd. He's shooting I think it's in the 60s in the restricted area, something like that. 41% from three, but he's not really taking that many threes. So that doesn't really count. His free throws could be a little bit better, but it is what it is. He's shooting 60% from just 2-point range in general, not even just a restricted area. And I'm pretty sure it goes up once it's in the restricted area. He's averaging 3.1 offensive rebounds a game, which again is also absurd. So he's putting together himself a good, nice little campaign here. But again, he's played in all 15 games. It's hard for me to. Ooh, that was a nice move by Shake. I'm watching the Lakers Sixers game at the moment. I'm seeing if the Sixers can pull off this miraculous win without Simmons or Embiid in LA. But I digress. So he's putting up amazing numbers. No way to. You can't get around that. He's doing his thing. But again, he's played in 15 games. Now, I think they said the player to win the Rookie of the Year with the fewest games played, I believe, was Patrick Ewing back in his rookie year. He played in the 30s. I know when Embiid played in 30-something games, not his first season, but his rookie season, they didn't give it to him because he got hurt and missed a lot of time, even though he was clearly the best rookie. He wasn't even close. I think it was the Malcolm Brogdon year when they should have gave it to Sarge, but that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. I think, the Bucks were a little bit better than the Sixers, obviously, and they were just like, hey, let's give it to Brogdon because he's a cool story. I guess he was a second-round pick. No one thought it was going to be anything. But yeah, so that year they should have given it to Embiid. That was wrong of them to not do that. So I think they're trying to counteract that here and give it to what you could argue has been the quote-unquote best rookie, even though, again, he's doing all of this in 15 games. He's done all this in 15 games. Where if you look at Ja Morant, and his team is, again, in the 12th spot currently. So like I said, if they make the playoffs, it's different. If he helps propel them to the playoffs, it's a different story. But right now they're, like I said, 4 games back of the Grizzlies for that 8th spot. So a lot of ground to make up. And the Grizzlies, mind you, are 30 and 31, led by Ja Morant, who leads the team in scoring. I mean, not scoring that much, but they have, not including Anthony Towers because he hasn't been there the entire year. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in double figures, so nice little balance. But yeah, he's played in 55 games. So if he plays in the rest of the games, I think they're 30 and 31. So he'd play in almost 70. He'd play over 70 games if he played in all the games left. Which, again, if he played in almost double the amount of games that Zion did. So he's been there the entire season. Has been tasked with being the best player on that team from start to finish. He's the point guard, so I mean that's always a lot of responsibility, no matter rookie or 10-year vet. That's a lot. Starting point guard on a basketball team there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and he has handled that all extremely well. He's been his own highlight reel. I mean, obviously Zion has created a lot of highlight-worthy plays in a short time span, but Ja has done the exact same thing to a different degree because the way they're doing is different. Though I mean, they both do like to dunk. Though I mean, you could make a highlight package of some of the dunks that Ja Morant has even missed this season. That's how impressive his misses have been this year. When you tried to, I think he had the Kevin Love one that he missed. He had another one not that long ago that he just barely missed. He's had the one when he goes up for the dunk and he spins and tried to pass to Jerry and Jackson, even though it got blocked. That was still his plays that haven't counted have still been highlight worthy. That's how entertaining and electrifying he's been this season. And like I said, he's been the leader of a team that's currently in the playoffs. He's leading the team in scoring with 17.6. He's leading the team in assists with 7. He's averaging 3.4 rebounds a game, almost a steal a game. He's shooting 49% from the field, 35% from 3, 77% from the line. He's been the Grizzlies' best player this entire season, which not many rookies can say. And I mean, at least on Zion's team, he has another guy who was an all-star. Now, would he have been an all-star if Zion was there the whole time? That's a fair question. But at the end of the day, Brandon Ingram was an all-star this year. John Morant does not have that luxury on his team. He's the guy. He's the guy that everybody focuses on and tries to stop every game. Not that the teams don't try to stop Zion, but they have less ways of knowing how to do that because, again, he's played in all of 15 games. But like I'm saying, it's always been tough for me to just, even though Zion, like I said, Zion's been sensational. I'm not trying to knock anybody that believes Zion could be Rookie of the Year because he definitely get a lot of votes. Let me just put it that way. He's going to get a lot of votes. And I mean, what does he have? He scored 20 plus in how many games now is it? Let me check the handy dandy numbers. So he scored 20 plus in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's only 6 games, I think. Hold on, let me make sure these dates are right. Yeah, so it's just in. So okay, so he had the one bad game. So, but before then, he had scored like 20 plus. He had scored 20 plus in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then he had the one game of 14 against. Oh no, take that back. I'm bugging. That was the world team. So he scored 20 plus in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 straight games, which is, I mean, for a rookie, that's very impressive. He's throwing a couple 30 balls in there as well. So he's been great. Not trying to take anything away from Zion. Not even a little bit. But again, the man has played 15 games compared to John Morant's 55. 40 plus games difference. Been there the whole season. Been tasked with leading a team. That team is currently in the playoffs. Are they under 500? Sure, but so is Zion's team. And it's not like their record. It's not like they're like 12-0 or whatever when Zion plays. Like they lose games when he plays too. They just lost. Like I said, they just lost to the Wolves with no Cat. Lost to the Lakers a couple times. Lost to the Thunder, the Bucks, the Rockets, and the Nuggets, the Spurs. Like they're not. I mean, well, the Nuggets and Spurs, that was before he was playing 30 plus minutes a night. But still, they lost. It's not like they haven't lost games with him in the lineup. Now, obviously, are they better with him? Yes, of course. But it's just hard for me to give it to a guy who hasn't been there the entire season. That's just how I feel. Like it's hard for me to give it to a guy that just hasn't been there the entire season, unless, like I've been saying, unless he propels his team to the playoffs. Now, he's going to have the opportunity. They're going to play the Grizzlies, I think, 2 more times this season. So he's going to have his chance to showcase why he should be the Rookie of the Year. I mean, and granted, it's not just a one-on-one thing. This is a 5-on-5. The NBA is obviously, as you guys know. So this isn't just Ja versus Zion. But, I mean, hey, this is how these things go. It's the same thing they're talking about with LeBron, which I think I'll talk about coming up on the next episode, because the Bucks and Lakers play Friday, I believe, and people are trying to make the point like, oh, LeBron, he could catch him for MVP. I'm like, no, he can't. But again, we'll save that for the next episode. So yeah, tune in for that discussion. But yeah, so it's unless Zion carries the Pelicans to the 8th seed, which is what I believe I've said on this podcast already, then I don't see how you can give the the Rookie of the Year to anybody but John Morant. Honestly, because again, he's been there the whole season, and he could very well help the Grizzlies get to the playoffs. Now, it gets tricky if a team like the Kings or the Blazers sneak in there to the AC. Now it gets a little bit more fickle in terms of, like, now you're just picking who you liked more because neither guy made the playoffs. And again, I would still contend that Zion has not played enough games to warrant the award. If Embiid didn't get it, don't just give it to Zion just because he was proclaimed to be the best rookie before the season started. And even though he's played like arguably the best rookie, again, very small sample size compared to other rookies that have been around for long and had more of a grind and more wear and tear on their bodies up until this point. But I'm saying, I've always contended, give it to whoever gets the 8th seed, if assuming one of them gets it. And if neither of them gets it, then we're having a different discussion. But if the Grizzlies can hold on to that 8th spot, when I think they said they're 3 games up now, or 3.5 games up on everybody on the on the 9 seed, or the 3 teams that are tied for the 9 seed. If they can hold that lead, then John Morant's the Rookie of the Year. I'm sorry, Zion would have to average 40 the rest of the season every game for me to change my mind on that. You lead a team to the playoffs as a rookie, as the best player. That seems. I mean, if that's not what Rookie of the Year is, then why do we even have the award? We just give it to the most hyped guy before the season. No offense to Zion, because he's playing great. But if he wins, it would just be on sheer preseason reputation. Just like, hey, we thought Zion was going to be the greatest thing ever. He's been pretty good, so hey, let's give it to him. Not based on what has happened this season. Because if you're basing on what happens this season, then John Morant should be well in the lead, and it should not really be that close. But hey, we'll see how it all plays out over these last 20 games of the season. So, hey, like I said, if the Pelicans make the playoffs and Zion's the driving force behind that, then by all means give him the award. But in most other circumstances, I don't see how you can just willingly give the award to a guy that's going to play in a few more than 30 games this season. Doesn't seem right to me. Doesn't seem right to the other rookies that have to play, go through the ups and downs, hit the rookie wall, all that stuff that Zion hasn't had to deal with because, again, he will have played not even half the season. But hey, that's just me. So after this break, we're going to come back and we're going to switch gears to football. I mean, we've talked about a lot of quarterback movement that could potentially be on the move. And with this quarterback, there's a team that people keep linking him to that I wish they would stop. So we'll talk about who that quarterback is. We'll talk about what that team is. Or not what that team is, who that team is, and why I think we just need to stop having this discussion right after this break. So stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So the quarterback in which I was talking about or referring to, I guess you would say, was none other than one Nick Foles. Now, it seems as if the Jaguars, a year after paying him pretty good money in free agency, 4 years, $88 million, around $22 million average over the course of the four years of the contract, seem to be moving on. I mean, they like what they saw from Gardner Minshew last year, which is, Nick Foles was benched at the end of the year, so there is that. But yes, they like what Gardner Minshew has shown, and obviously he's much cheaper than Nick Foles is. So he seems to be on the trade block. I mean, I guess in theory, it is possible that he could be cut. Though, if he is cut, he would have a dead cap hit of $33.8 million. So that's not going to happen. And I guess they could wait for the post-June delegation to cut somebody. Though I think in the new CBA, I don't know if that's a thing anymore. But I mean, hey, we won't even know if the new CBA. we'll know if the new CBA passes within the next few weeks. But there's no even guarantee it's going to pass. But if they did that, then they would be dealing with only an $18.75 million cap hit, which obviously is a big difference. And then him being traded is even though it is possible, it's still pretty complicated, seeing as he didn't really play that well this year. So that's a problem. The only way to trade Foles might be to do a Brock Osweiler type trade, according to, this is from an article from Sports Illustrated. That like the Texans did, where they send Brock Osweiler and his massive contract to the Browns, but include a second round pick to go with it. The Browns took on the contract, but Houston had to give up a premium pick to make it happen. So there are teams that he could be traded to, like the Dolphins. Maybe it was a stopgap kind of thing. Plus the Dolphins just have all this cap space, and they gotta use it somewhere. I guess the Colts are an option. Reunite him with Frank Reich, though. Again, paying him and Jacoby Brissett a lot of money wouldn't make that much sense. I guess maybe as a back. So they're saying as a backup to Kyler Murray in Arizona, just because they can afford to take on the contract. Even though, again, you're paying more money to your backup quarterback than your starter, which seems kind of backwards, in my personal opinion. So, I mean, again, the trade for Nick Foles is kind of odd. But the one team that I didn't mention that he has been linked to, which was obviously going to happen just because of the nature of how his last stint there went, was the Philadelphia Eagles. And, I mean, this is mainly, obviously, since I work, I can't watch all the daily shows, but there was a clip going around from, I think it was Get Up. Pretty sure it was Get Up, from this morning, where it was Mike Tannenbaum talking about how the Eagles should trade for Nick Foles to be the backup. And Josina Anderson kind of co-signed it, talking about how he gets along with the players and Carson Wentz shouldn't be afraid of competition and blah, blah, blah. And we'll get to that point in a second because that was foolish. But also, I know Dan Orlovsky got up from the table and just kind of walked in a circle just because he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And I don't blame Dan. Obviously, Dan Orlovsky is a noted Carson Wentz fan. Don't want to call him a stan because I wouldn't go that far. Because he doesn't just support Carson Wentz, he supports all good quarterback play. And Carson Wentz is, contrary to popular belief, a good quarterback. But yeah, trading for Nick Foles from an Eagles perspective makes absolutely zero sense, and anyone suggesting it is an idiot. Nope, that's too strong. Isn't thinking clearly. I don't want to call people idiots. That's rude. Isn't thinking clearly. Let me just put it that way. Why on earth would the Eagles, when they had the chance to keep Nick Foles, if they so wanted to, they allowed him to hit free agency, didn't franchise tag him, nothing. They just let him go. Well, I think he was able to get out of his deal, Nick Foles was, because there was the weird option. And then they didn't really put up much of a fight. They just let him walk out, gave all the money to Carson Wentz, and then their seasons played out how they played out. So, if the team had the opportunity to keep him last season and chose not to, why, after a year where he wasn't that good, A, and B, in which he got hurt, why would this be the time to bring him back to the team? What sense does that make other than he was good there before? That's really the only reason anybody's even talking about this, is because, he played well there before, won the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. Again, everyone views Nick Foles differently, and I've often said this. Not really on here, but just in general in life. Everyone views Nick Foles differently if Keanu Neal just catches the ball with his chest before the end of the first half, instead of trying to catch it with his knee. If that doesn't happen and the ball doesn't deflect to Torrey Smith and they aren't able to kick a field goal before half to cut into the lead, and potentially Keanu Neal, like I said, catches the ball, maybe even returns it for a touchdown, but just has a nice return, sets up the Falcons for more points before the halftime, the Eagles probably lose that game, and then no one views Nick Foles as this savior of a quarterback for the Eagles franchise. Now, again, we can't play in what-ifs because that's not what happened. But again, 2 good games does not automatically mean that you are a great quarterback. Everybody in the league is in the league for a reason. So it is completely possible that these guys can get hot at a certain time. That's basically what Nick Foles did. He got hot right at the right time. It just so happened that the two games that he got hot in were the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, so that helps. And before that and after that, he really hasn't done a whole... I mean, I guess he had the 27-2 year, but they lost in the playoffs that year. Whether he left the field with the lead or not, they still lost the team game. And then the year after that, I guess people will say that they could have won. But again, if they don't block the field goal against the Bears, they lose that game too. So, and again, it's not like Nick Foles is out there. He's not out there Joe Montana or Tom Brady in the playoffs. Like he's not perfect. He has his slip ups. He has his bad moments. Especially that Bears game. He was not that good up until the final drive, which again is great, but like that doesn't undo all the bad that he had done up until that point. Wow, where did he beat the Nuggets? That's weird. But yeah. So because of that Super Bowl, people think, oh, he needs to be the Eagles' backup quarterback, basically at all times. Even though it would undermine the current quarterback who they just paid big money to. And also where they have other holes on their team that were clearly evident if you watched the Eagles play even just one game this past season. They have holes at receiver. They got holes at cornerback, holes at linebacker. Their safeties, well, one's a free agent and the other one, Malcolm Jenkins, doesn't want to play on his current deal, so he's going to need to get paid. So they might need two new safeties, probably just one, but they might need two. And like I said, no linebackers. They need pass rush help. So yeah, they have a lot of hole is not really the right word, but they have a lot of positions to try to fill and needs to try to fill, both in draft and free agency. And trading a draft pick for a backup quarterback whose cap hit is like $22 million this year doesn't seem like a good use of resources, like at all. Why does anyone think this is like a viable option? Now, I mean, strange things have happened, so I'm not gonna completely put it out there, but there's no chance Harry Roseman does this. I'm sorry. There's no chance. It just doesn't make any sort of sense at all. Why in the world would you bring this guy back to hang this cloud over Carson Wentz again? A guy who just got through a season healthy, regular season. I understand that he got knocked out in the playoffs. But again, most quarterbacks get speared in the back of the head. They're going to get knocked out too. It was a very freak thing. Got through 16 games healthy, led the team to the playoffs, played great down the stretch. Why would you come in and mess that up? Why? It doesn't make any sense. And again, you have to give up draft picks in order to do this. Like, they're not just going to give them to him for free because they're not going to cut him. And even if they did cut him, don't bring him back. That's stupid. So yeah, they're not gonna trade draft picks for him. And like I said, they have other holes they need to use their cap space for. Taking up $22 million and like basically they'd be paying their quarterback position well over $40 million combined next year, assuming Carson Wentz's cap is in like some extremely low number, which I don't think it is. I guess I could double check that for you guys, but assuming it's not some extremely low number, they'd be paying like well over $40 million for their quarterback room, which again does not seem like a good use of resources, especially on a team that has many other holes. I mean, again, needs that they have to fill. And so back to the other point I said I was going to touch on with Josina Anderson, who said that, she's had a weird history with Wentz in terms of like the things she said. I know she caught a lot of flack from Eagles Twitter, where I think she made a comment about Wentz getting hurt, and then Torrey Holt of all people, was kind of random, responded and said there's like always something with him, and then she kind of like coincided that, even though again he didn't just get like randomly nicked, like he got hit in the back of the head on a cheap shot. So again, most quarterbacks would have gotten hurt in that same scenario, so I can't blame him for that one that much. But yeah, she's She's had a thing. She's had the multiple reports from anonymous players who may or may not have been Alshon, but from Alshon Jeffrey, from anonymous players bad mouthing Wentz and the offense and stuff. So her I don't know, and behavior is not the right word, but her comments around Wentz have always been a little weird, and this only adds fuel to that. Okay, so I looked up Wentz's cap hit next year is $18 million. So combined, they'd be paying $40 million for their quarterback room. Not a good use of resources at all. That doesn't make any sort of sense. But I digress. So she's had a weird relationship, I guess you could say, with Wentz in terms of the way that she's covered him, and just at the comment about Nick Foles, the players like him in the locker room. Again, it's mainly just one guy, cough cough, Alshon, that has bad mouth Wentz. Everyone else seems to like him for the most part. And then also the thing about competition is just that, like, again, he's not Mitch Trubisky, he's not Jameis Winston, he's not Mariota, he's not who else? He's not Jacoby Brissett, he's not Derek Carr. Like, he doesn't need. There's no reason to bring in competition to kind of like try to see, because you're not sure how good he is. Like, the Eagles have a pretty baseline of how good they think he can be. Now, he could very well surpass that, but his floor is pretty high, relatively speaking. So what is you going, like, no one's bringing in competition for Deshaun Watson. No one's bringing in, well, obviously not for Lamar and Mahomes, but no one's bringing in competition for Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray or Baker. Like, no, those guys are bringing competition. Why does he need to be willing to compete with the, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he's a starting quarterback. He's getting paid like a starting quarterback. Like, why would he need to compete for a spot? That seems kind of odd to me. So that was a weird thing for her to say, in my opinion. But yeah, we just need to stop talking about this. Stop saying that Nick Foles could go back to the Eagles, because again, it makes zero sense. They're not going to trade, they're not going to give up resources for a guy who you hope never sees the field, but is also getting paid $22 million next year against the cap. Again, I don't know how it would work if and when he would be traded in this hypothetical situation. And again, the use of resources in that manner would be foolish. And Harry Rosen's not a foolish GM. He's a smart guy. He understands what is and isn't smart. So he would never do something like that. In my opinion, I guess crazier things have happened, but that I saw that today, and I hadn't even thought about it, because I was like, that wouldn't make any sense. But the fact that people were, they're doing it to rile up Eagles fans, because we are easy to be riled up. But yeah, Nick Foles, keep him as far away from Philly as possible. Just, he can come back when he wants to retire. That's it. Anything before that, nah, we don't. The Eagles don't need that. Carson Wentz doesn't need that. There's no point. There's no point. There's no point to bring him back. No point to bring him back. But so speaking of the Jaguars, as we have been, and to a degree, they seem to be blowing up their team, and them blowing up their team may very well be not may very well, it should be, I believe, is a cautionary tale to other teams about how to handle your roster. And we'll talk about what I mean by all that, and what, like I said, what the Jaguars have done, and what other teams may soon suffer the same fate right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Podcast Network. So, as I had mentioned, the Jaguars as a team will look a lot different, especially on the defense side of the football. Will look a lot different this time, well, in a few months than they did before this season, or even before, a couple seasons ago. They just traded corner A.J. Boye to the Broncos for a 4th-round pick. And they're going to put the franchise tag on Yannick Ngakoue, the defensive end, who's been very good for them out of Maryland. I'm pretty sure. I think they got him the 3rd round. It was in the middle of the draft. But he's been very good for them. They're going to put the franchise tag on him. He doesn't want to be there anymore. So they'll probably end up having to trade him as well, see what they can get for him. But if you look back on the defense that they had in the AFC Championship game of a couple years ago against the Patriots, Jalen Ramsey traded, A.J. Boye traded, Dante Fowler traded, Marcel Harris I think got traded, Lee Jackson got cut and then signed with the Eagles as free agent, Aaron Colvin left, Deshaun Gibson gone, Barry Church, he wasn't that good, but he's gone, Yannick Ngakoue doesn't want to be with the Jaguars anymore, and Talvin Smith kind of sort of retired. He's taking time away from the game. So, yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 10 of the 11. And I think, Paul Leslie, I think, started on that team. Or at least Miles Jack. He's the other guy still there. Him and Calais Campbell are the only guys that played a lot on that defense that are still there from that NFC Championship team. So, yeah. That's kind of crazy. That season was only what? It's only been 2 seasons since then. And the fact that a majority of those players have either been traded or cut or just gone from that team is absurd when you think about most of those guys weren't really that old. It's not like these guys are retired. Jalen Ramsey is still young. Yannick Ngakoue is still young. Dante Fowler is still young. Boye is a little bit older, but he's not that old. Lee Jackson's a little bit older, not that old. Darius is a little bit older. Aaron Colvin, I guess he's not really that. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. And Gibson and Church are whatever. And then, like I said, Talvin Smith isn't that old, relatively speaking, in terms of he's not in his late 30s, but again, he took time away from the game, so more power to him. But yeah, so the fact that they are going to look very different is a cautionary tale to all, or should be a cautionary tale to all teams around the league to not bet on bad quarterbacks. Because that's what the Jaguars did. After they went to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles, even though it was clear in that AFC Championship game, against the Patriots, that they were trying their best and they make sure Blake Bortles didn't lose in the game, especially when they sat on the ball there to end the first half with they had well over a minute left and a couple of timeouts, and they just sat on the ball because again they were afraid that Blake Bortles would screw things up, and yet they still gave him a guarantee. It was a short-ish term extension; they were able to get out of it, but they still gave him an extension when it was clear that he's really not that good. He wasn't that good before then. He had one not bad year, though. Again, a lot of it was on the back of a very, very, very good defense. And like I said, you list off the names that were on that defense, you could see why the defense was so good. But yeah, so they bet on a bad quarterback, lost, and now they have to blow up. Also some Tom Coughlin stuff in there kind of helped lead to this. But then they have to blow up the entire team, basically. You're going to have to trade away multiple guys under the age of 25, 26 years old that are very good at their position just because. That's a disaster. But yeah, so this is a cautionary, like I'm saying, it's a cautionary tale of one, that, again, like many people like to say, the league stands for not for long, and two, that don't tie yourselves to bad quarterbacks, or you will be like this. So, I'm talking to you, Chicago Bears. For example, they have Mitch Trubisky, who, I mean, again, they're trying to bring in some competition for him, as they should, because you don't want to be tied to bad quarterbacks. The Bears went, I'm pretty sure we talked about this last episode, they went 8-8 last season. And that was with some of the worst quarterbacking in the league. If they had just even decent quarterback play, they might potentially make the playoffs. They might have potentially made the playoffs. They could have had at least 2 more wins, maybe if not more, with that defense. But no, it went by the wayside because of Mitch, and I guess Chase Daniel had to play some games too. He wasn't really that good, so their entire quarterback situation wasn't that great, and because of that, the team's overall record suffered. And now they're in a position where they have to decide what to do with Mitch, because he's going into his 4th year now. I guess they could pick up his 5th year option. I doubt they will, but in theory they could. And you got to decide if he's going to be the guy or you're going to bring in some competition. It sounds like they're at least going to bring in some competition, which in my mind is the right thing to do, because again, he's not the answer. At least not yet. I mean, and he could easily have a career year and then end up parlaying that into a second contract, then either continuing to be good or stinking up. They really don't know where it's going to go from here. Because again, as we saw with Blake Bortles, he was good enough for 1 year, then he went back to being sorry. Sorry to a degree, obviously, because he's in the NFL, so he's better than 99% of the people that have ever played football in their life. But compared to other quarterbacks in the league, not that great. I'm saying that's where the Bears could be. I mean, they have a lot of they have a lot of very good players on that defense. Whether it's Khalil Mack's getting paid a lot of money, Kyle Fuller, who I know he signed an extension, but I don't know how much money he's getting paid. A. Jackson, I think they already gave him an extension, but if they didn't, they're going to have to pay him. But I'm pretty sure Eddie Jackson got an extension. Let me just double check that for you guys. They're going to have to pay Roquan Smith soon. They got Akeem Hicks, who's making a decent amount of money. They have to pay some money to bring back, whether it's they already gave him a deal to make him the highest paid safety in history, and that was early 2020, so in January. He signed a 4-year extension. So he's getting paid big money. This is they're gonna have to pay some money to bring back whether it's Danny Trevathan or Nick Kwiatkowski. They might have to. I don't know if they're going to be able to draft a guy to replace Leonard Floyd. I think he's probably gone, but they might have to pay some money there. They got to figure out their other safety spot. They probably need another receiver to go opposite Allen Robinson. They might have to pay big money for a tight end. Like I know they've reportedly linked to Austin Hooper, so they might have to pay big money for him. So it's like they're going to be giving out a lot of money to people that aren't the quarterback. So if that is the case, you need to make sure you have the right guy in place to lead that team, or else you're just paying a lot of guys to not make the playoffs, and that causes teams to have to blow themselves up. That causes teams to have to blow themselves up, and now all of a sudden, if they don't do anything this year, this will be the 3rd season on Khalil Mack. They might have to look into trading him, not going to trade Eddie Jackson, looking into trading Fuller maybe. So got to figure out what to do with Akeem Hicks. Like, it'll be all bad if things don't go right. I mean, Matt Nagy might get fired, Ryan Pace might get fired, and then all bets are off if that happens. But yeah, so again, Bears don't turn into the Jaguars and tie yourselves to a bad quarterback. The same thing could be said for the Bucks. I mean, granted, they don't have as many high-priced guys in their defense that they would have to trade off, but I mean, it doesn't sound like Bruce Arians is 100% sticking with James. They still might, but it's just that it's hard. It's when it got those 30 picks, it's hard for me to have faith that that's going to get better. I mean, in theory, you really can't get worse than 30 picks, but I'm not going to be here to find out if you can or get better or worse than that. Like, why am I tying myself to a guy who again, turned the ball over more than anybody in the league last year? The games didn't really even start for James until he threw a pick, basically. I mean, he literally threw multiple pick sixes on the opening drives this season. Like, it was just like he needed to get that first pick out the way to get himself going, it seemed like, almost. And that's just not, I mean, that's not a sustainable offense to just continue to turn the ball over game after game after game. So in most cases, multiple times. That's not going to work. So yeah, I'm looking at the Bucks. Don't tie yourselves to a bad quarterback if you don't have to. You saw what the Titans did. The Titans had Mariota there on his 5th year, brought in Tannehill. They could have wrote it out. Mariota just had a bad season. Got a top pick, maybe been in line for a Tua, or I guess they like a Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, even maybe. We'll talk about him on a later episode. Just the fact that how he's just risen into potential top 10, top 15 pick based on I'm not sure what exactly, but like I said, we'll do a deeper dive into that on a later episode. But yeah, they could have just voted out. They chose not to. They made the switch to Tannehill, and then they got the AFC Championship game. And like I said, it would have been very easy for them to just stick with Mariota and ride it out, and then not be that good, and then just let him go, and then maybe start Ryan Tannehill a game or two at the end of the season, see what he has, and then go from there. But now at least you know that. I mean, I'm not saying I would 100% stick to the Ryan Tannehill train, because I mean, while many players have looked better once they're away from Adam Gase, I mean, he's shown to be an average quarterback most of his career. So one good season should not 100% make you believe that that's completely changed. Though, I mean, maybe it has. But again, the Titans chose not to stick with Mariota when they could have, because they thought they had a better option. And it turns out they did. And look what happened. And it's a similar situation that the last team I want to talk about a little bit is the Rams, because they could find themselves in a very similar situation to the Jaguars at this time next year. Because they have Jared Goff, who I think is the highest cap hit of any quarterback next year. They have Todd Gurley, who I think has the highest cap hit of any running back next year. Aaron Donald, who has the highest cap hit of any defensive, especially any defensive tackle, maybe just any defensive lineman, period. And they have Brandon Cooks, who's top 10, I think number 6 in terms of wide receiver cap hits, and then that's before you even factor in a Jalen Ramsey extension, where he's going to have to get paid a lot. They traded multiple first-round picks for him, so they're not just going to be able to get him on the cheap. So yeah, they could be a team that's in the same situation where they, I mean, now granted, Jared Goff was better than Blake Bortles was, but this past season, not great at all. And if he doesn't improve next year, then they could be stuck in a situation where you're paying a lot of money to a guy who's not really that good, and that's hindering the rest of your team. So I'm just saying, if I'm the Rams, I'd be cautious of this, especially when again you're going to be paying a lot of guys a lot of money. I mean, top of their position, type of money across 4, 5, 6 different positions. You got to be mindful of this, because if Jared Goff isn't good again next year, you can't just stick with him just because you gave him a lot of money. That's how good teams become bad teams very, very quickly. Like, if Jared Goff proves to be not the answer next year, you got to move on. You can't keep him around. Then, you know what I'm saying? You just bring down the rest of your team. You're wasting Aaron Donald's prime. You're wasting Jalen Ramsey's prime. And, I mean, that would be an atrocity. Now, granted, they did get to the Super Bowl. So, it's better than the Jaguars. Better than Jaguars did. But Jared Goff was terrible in that Super Bowl. I mean, the whole Rams offense was terrible. I don't want to pin it all on Jared Goff, but he was not good. And then again, that trickled over into this year where he wasn't that good. We'll see what happens next year, but I'm just saying, Rams, you don't want to become the Jaguars. So, if Jared Goff isn't the answer, be ready and willing to move on, because you hold him on for too long, and now all of a sudden your team's getting blown up, and that's not what the Rams, I would imagine, would want to do, especially when they don't have really the draft picks to recoup some of the talent. Well, I mean, they would need to. Now you're trading the talent to get draft picks back to be able to recoup that talent, and that's not good. That's not a good practice. You shouldn't be trading away elite level players. Not that the Jaguars. I mean, the Jaguars did in Jalen Ramsey to a degree, and they might be trading it and doing the same thing with Ngakoue. But I'm just saying, Rams, be careful. Pay close attention to what happened with the Jags. You don't want that to be you. You do not want that to be you. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with Ngakoue. See what happens with the Jags. I mean, they're going to be in a rebuild again, I guess. They've been rebuilding for most of this, the past 10 plus years. I think I saw something where like this decade they've had a losing record every year except for the 1 year they magically made it to the AFC Championship game, which is like kind of crazy when you think about it. But also, it seems very true. Excuse me, just because when you look and think back, I mean, the Jaguars haven't been that good in a long time since David Garrard left, and that was in the mid 2000s. I was like a kid still, so yeah. NFL, not for long. Remember that, boys and girls, not for long. So after this next break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss a elite level player that is interested in playing in the Olympics in Tokyo, even though, again, it may very well get canceled or postponed due to the coronavirus. But if it doesn't, this guy seems to have no problems with playing overseas, and I think that would be a mistake. So we'll talk about who that is and why I think that would be a bad decision on his part right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So, the player in which I was referring to was none other than injured superstar Kevin Durant. Now, if you watch First Take, then you know Stephen A. kind of went off a little bit on this, but let's do a little backstory first. Kevin Durant, even though he is expected to miss the entirety of this 2019-2020 NBA season, he has not removed his name from the pool of players that could potentially play in Tokyo. According to Rich Kleiman, Durant's friend, manager, and business partner, the Olympics are still potentially in play for Kevin Durant, because obviously I think the training camp starts in like July, which will have been well over a year since he had Achilles surgery, so he should be back and healthy by then. But, I mean, again, we'll get to why this is a bad idea in a second. The possibility of him participating obviously depends on how he continues to recover. Durant was one of the 44 finalists for the 12-man roster named by Team USA last month. Tokyo is definitely a possibility, Rich Kleiman said via the Washington Post. He allowed his name to be in the group of finalists, but there are other benchmarks in front of him that are more important before he makes those decisions. Like I said, Kleiman expects him to be back and better than ever. Everyone knows what him and Kyrie will be capable of doing next year. They're still in playoff position without him, blah, blah, blah. And if Durant ultimately does decide to suit up, again, this is all from an article on CBS Sports, for Team USA, it won't be the first time, as the former MVP won gold medals as a member of the 2012 team in London and the 2016 team in Rio. Brooklyn's front office probably isn't too happy about the prospect of KD wearing a Team USA jersey before he wears the Nets jersey, but at the end of the day, you can't prevent a player from representing a country if he wants to. Plus, on the bright side, if Durant does play in Tokyo, he'll come into next season with some high-level competition under his belt as opposed to returning cold after an extended amount of time. So, as I said, I think this was like, I think it was Monday. Stephen A. kind of went a little nuts about this. He talked about basically just saying that like it didn't make any sense for Kevin Durant to come back and that he would be mad and all this stuff. And I mean, even though I'm not really a guy that agrees with many things Stephen A. says these days, I gotta agree with him on this one, just because it seems wild. Like the fact that he could potentially play for Team USA before he plays for the Nets is absurd to me. 1. 2. Just come back off an Achilles. Is this? I mean, again, this is like a good tune-up because these are the people you playing. Though they're skilled, they're not all NBA caliber players, so that helps him. Or does he just get his feet wet in terms of getting back in the swing of things in competition? So that part of it is a plus. But KD has already won 2 gold medals, so it's not like he's missed out on that before in his career. Like he's won 2 already. He played in the last one with the whole Zika situation. So I mean, I guess it shouldn't surprise anybody who's going to want to play with the coronavirus thing swirling around. But like I said, he played at the last Olympics. He played in 2012. Won 2 gold medals. He's good. Like, does he really need that 3rd gold medal that badly? I mean, hey, maybe he's just tired of sitting on the sidelines and wants to compete. I get that. But you got to be smart about these things. And I know the article said that the Nets really can't do anything if he wants to play for his country, and that's probably true. But if I'm a Nets owner, fan, player, coach, executive, stockholder, whatever, I would be beside myself hearing this news. Absolutely beside myself. Because he hasn't even set foot on the court in a Brooklyn Nets uniform yet. I would need to see that first before I could feel good about him playing for anybody else. Like, there's no way a guy that you will have invested, again, a lot of rehab time in, a lot of workout time in, and a lot of money in, because they didn't, it's not like they got him for free. They had to sign him for free agency. They paid him a lot of money. And a guy who's going to be very vital to the future of this franchise. How can I feel good about him playing for the first time in a long time overseas? Now, again, he will be far removed from the surgery, so he should be fine in that regard. But it's just that, like, if I'm a Nets fan, like, how can I feel good about this? Because I don't see there's no really way that I can spin this as anyone involved with that organization and feel good about KD playing in the Olympics. And that's just from a pure basketball standpoint. I don't even get into the coronavirus part of it. Just from a pure basketball standpoint. How can I feel good about KD going over there and playing when I haven't even seen him play for my own team yet? He hasn't even played for the Nets. How is he then going to play for Team USA? I mean, obviously, like I said, if he wants to play for Team USA, I don't think there's anything the Nets contractually are able to do to stop him. But for the betterment of his health, I mean, if he's going to, like, obviously there's a slim chance you could get hurt doing anything. People get hurt, like, I mean, John Wall tore his Achilles, I think, he slipped on something, like, off the court. Like, he had already hurt it, but then he, like, re-injured it, like, off the court somewhere. So, I mean, it's not like you can only get hurt playing basketball. You can get hurt doing a lot of things. But if he's going to get hurt playing competitive basketball, again, potentially, knock on wood, you don't want that to happen to KD. You want him to, he's one of the best players in the league, and a guy that brings excitement to the league and bring eyes and viewership to the league. So you want him to be healthy. That's the thing. You need him to be healthy for the NBA season. Team USA going to be all right without KD. The Nets aren't going to be all right if KD isn't healthy next year. they're going to be in trouble. Especially with Kyrie seemingly struggle to get through a season healthy these days. It's there's no guarantee that he's going to make it through all 82 games. I mean, most players don't play 82 games, but even make it through 70 games at this point, there's always something, and that's unfortunate for Kyrie. But there's always something. So they could potentially need KD even more, just because you can kind of already bake in 10 to 15 games Kyrie's going to miss next year. And that's not even to mention any games KD misses due to like load management or any injuries of his own. So, if I'm the Nets, I would be beside myself hearing those comments. Because again, it's just like, on top of the inherent injury risk that could potentially come in an international game, having not played in over a year, there's also the coronavirus thing. Why would I risk getting KD sick? When again, he hasn't even played for the Nets yet. At least if he came back in April or whatever and played a couple games with the Nets, you see how he looks, see how he plays, see how he moves and all that stuff. Maybe you feel a little bit better about him going overseas. But if you're going to watch KD play for the first time, like the rest of us are, nah, that's not it. That ain't it, Chief. That's not it at all. I'd be livid. If I'm anything associated with the Nets, I'd be livid to hear that. No one. I've had many conversations about the coronavirus with people, and I don't think it's at global pandemic levels just yet. Because relatively speaking, most of the major cases and deaths have been in China. Other countries have had extreme levels of, not extreme levels, but it's had a lot of cases and maybe a good amount of deaths of their own. But it's in the grand totality of things, it's not wiping out hundreds of thousands of people yet. Not to say that it can't, but that's not where we're at right now. Now, again, we'll see where we're at in a couple months, but as of right now, it's not that serious. But all you need is just one person to have been in the wrong spot and be at the same side with KD. Now he gets sick. Now he infects other people, and it's just that now we bring him back over to the States and bring him back to the NBA, and now it's just a whole mess. And again, that could happen anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But I'm just saying, you can't risk not only the injury situation, but also the coronavirus situation if you're the Nets, who have yet to see KD play a game in your uniform. He has not played in one game in a Nets uniform. And I'm talking about him going over and playing in the Olympics. I have to actually see how many. Well, I guess maybe Magic, because I don't exactly know how the Dream Team coincided. I don't remember exactly how the Dream Team coincided with his IAs, because that was before my time. But when has a player ever missed a whole season and played in the Olympics? I would love to. I might honestly have to look that up on my own off the air, just because that just seems like an absurd proposition. Just oh yeah, I'm gonna be out the whole season, but then also I'm gonna play in the Olympics. Different degree, but I would feel the same way. I think the Warriors feel the same way about Clay. Hey, yeah, dude, no, don't do that. Don't play in the Olympics. And you're coming off from again, it's not like he's has a sprained ankle or a concussion or a shoulder thing. This is a major leg injury, and Achilles is not something to play with. Literally not something to play with, but also not something to take lightly. And again, they've been very good with him. They haven't rushed him back, but it's just that they didn't give him all this time to rehab to then watch him go over and play in the Olympics. I don't think that was a part of their plan. Now again, Katie's a grown man, he can do what he wants, but I don't think the Warriors would be thrilled if they heard Clay was thinking about playing in the Olympics. Even though at least he's given the Warriors a lot, so that they could feel a little bit better about it if something were to happen to him. But again, that's the last thing you want to do is have a guy come off injury, get re-injured, playing in the Olympics when he's already played in the Olympics. Like, that's... I understand why KD wants to do it, because he hasn't played basketball so long. He wants to just go out there and compete. Again, if he decides to do that, there's no guarantee he will. But for instance, I understand why he would want to. But at the same time, you got to be smart, and that doesn't seem that smart to me. But he's his own man. Does his own thing. To each his own. I'm just saying. And if I were a Nets anything, and I heard that from Rich Kleiman, I would be less than thrilled, to say the least. But yeah, so I guess we'll see. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens with this coronavirus thing too. But we'll see what happens with how the Olympics shape up, whether they postpone it, whether they delay, whether they cancel it altogether. But I guess would make things a lot easier for guys like KD and the Nets. They probably would be happy with that. The Nets would. But if that doesn't happen, I guess we'll just see what does happen in terms of who ends up deciding to play and who ends up deciding not to play and who ends up making the team. So yeah, we'll see how all that stuff plays out over these next few months. But after this last break, I should say, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a school that does not seem to appreciate the services of one Marshawn Lynch. So if you haven't heard this news, we'll touch on it right back. We'll touch on it when we get back. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, Marshawn Lynch, Beast Mode, one of the most interesting personalities in the NFL, on and off the field, was picked to be the school's Class Day speaker at Princeton. Which is, obviously he didn't go to Princeton, he went to Cal. Very highly respected school. But yeah, he was picked to be the speaker. And yeah, the students were less than thrilled by it. Why? We will get to it in a moment. But the fact that that in and of itself is already an issue with me. Just because, Beast Mode is, again, a very interesting personality, and he's done a lot of good things off the field, so you'd think he'd have a lot of interesting tidbits and wisdom to provide to these students. And again, it's not like he's he's not just like any football player. He's a football player that went to a good school and has a good message, whether it's for the players, whether it's for people in general, all that stuff. He's done a lot, he's seen a lot, so you'd think you'd want a speaker that's well versed with the world, especially at a school like Princeton, where there's a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences that people come into the school with. But as I said, the announcement was met with some resistance, as the Princeton Class Day co-chair, this is all from ESPN, recognized Lynch for him always having prioritized community engagement and empowerment by leveraging his prominence as a professional athlete to promote opportunities for civic engagement and social injustice, which he has been a very big proponent of. But seniors who penned an op-ed in the school newspaper say the Super Bowl winning running back isn't the problem, but rather that the student body was largely not included in the selection process. Saying that Lynch has unapologetically embodied and advocated for our own identities and values, as stated in the university's official Instagram post, without actually consulting us, the Princeton community, is paradoxical and thus questionable, the op-ed read. We do not mean to criticize the choice of a speaker in particular, but rather want to call attention to the OPEG, I think, I'm not really sure, selection process for the Class Day speakers. The 3 Class Day co-chairs are students at Princeton, obviously, because it's not they just have some outsiders making these decisions. Our goal was to invite a speaker who embodies the various experiences we have shared as a community during our Princeton tenure, someone whose professional and personal passions speak to the service focus and intellectual rigorous interests core to the university. Co-chair said in a statement. It makes total sense for me. The previous 2 Class A speakers have been actress Ellie Kemper. I did not know she went to Princeton. A Princeton alum. I'm pretty sure that's what. What was her name in the office? Kelly? No. Was it? No. Yeah, it might have been Kelly, actually. I'm mad I don't remember what this is. Aaron! Kelly was Mindy Kaling. Aaron. I feel stupid. She was in, and then she was in The Unbreakable. She was in the Kelly Smith show on Netflix. Yeah, again, did not know she went to Princeton. Good for her. But yeah, so Aaron on The Office. I can't believe I got those names mixed up. Please shun me for that. But yeah, so she was there, and then Cory Booker was the other. Well, they were the last 2. And yeah, the Class Day is scheduled for June 1st, one day before commencement, so we'll see if he still speaks. But I'm just saying, it just goes to show what little appreciation academics have for athletes. And also just like how entitled just millennials and college students are as a whole. Just so they're like, oh, we weren't involved in the selection process for who should speak. I don't care for football, so I shouldn't have to listen to him speak. Kind of. I was like, very rarely are you involved in the decision making process in a lot of aspects of your life. I know I think Lisa Salters spoke to my graduating class when we graduated from College Com. She came and spoke. I didn't have any say in that. She was just picked. Is that a normal thing? Maybe I just didn't go to the right school, but is that a normal thing? People get to pick their commencement or whoever speakers? Is that a common thing? I am unaware of this. So maybe that's why the guys are up and down, just because more normally Princeton guys can pick. But again, they're picked by people that are voted to these positions that are Princeton students. So also, while I was at school, we had this thing called Moving On up at Penn State. If you know, you know. But if you don't, it was just basically a concert where there's just a concert last day of school. It's free. It's out on the IM fields. Just kind of a festival. It has a festival type of feel to it. And very rarely did we have much say in who came and who didn't. That's just a thing. There are things that you have a say in, elections, things of that nature. But a lot of aspects of life, you don't really have much say into who and what decisions are made. Again, as sports fans, we don't have much say in who's re-signed, who's traded, who's cut, who's released, who's drafted, and all that stuff with our favorite teams. We just kind of have to go along with it, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But to be oh, you didn't consult us with this, that's alright, yeah, entitled much, a little bit. But yeah, this kind of just brings me back to, in high school, I went to the same high school that Karl Towns of the Timberwolves went to, and during my senior year, I think he was technically a sophomore at the time, but he was reclassifying up, and he was also stating where he was going to go to college. And it was obviously going to be Kentucky. Everybody anybody who had a hunch, I mean, not anybody who had a hunch, but anybody who was paying attention knew it was Kentucky. I mean, he played for, Coach Cal coached, like, the Dominican Republic national team that he played on when he was, like, a teenager, or like a teenager, so it was like, the links were all there. But regardless, so we had a big assembly for it, and because of the assembly, like, the whole school got out of class, a couple periods, whatever. And I remember at that time, like, a lot of the, like, scholar, like the AP students or whatever, like, hey, why do we have to miss class? Like, blah blah blah. Like, we don't want to go to this. Like, we shouldn't have to go. It doesn't really affect us. We don't really care. Blah blah. And I was like, whoa, hold on, time out. Like, missing 2 periods on a random, like, Wednesday is that big of a deal? Like, it's really not that serious. But it showed me how much academics, like, they don't, like, sports, like, athletes and all that stuff aren't really their cup of tea. So just like they were just like, we could care less about where Carl decides he wants to go to school, so why do we have to go when we could just be in class learning or doing whatever? I remember that was like a whole big thing for a few days just in the school, just talking about how people were so up in arms, and you will, about the fact they were missing class, which is like an absurd thing, because usually especially in high school, people are like always happy to be like, hey, yeah, no, like, we don't have to do that much work today, or like there's a sub, or like whatever. And they were just like, nope, I am angry that I am missing class. We should be in class. Who cares about Carl? Blah blah blah. And I was like, that was a mess. But again, it's kind of stems back to this, where it's just like, this is just not who they wanted, and they're just like, I don't care. Like, this is not who I wanted. I wanted somebody. I mean, they didn't say exactly who, but just in theory, I'm imagining they wanted somebody else, which is why they're mad. Because if they liked the pick, then they wouldn't have been complaining about, oh, you didn't consult us, you didn't talk to us, we didn't get a say in it, blah blah blah. But since they don't, maybe these guys, I mean, it's Princeton, so they don't. Maybe these guys aren't really interested in Marshawn Lynch and what he has to say, which is kind of crazy, because he's like the class day chair said, he's a guy who's prioritized community engagement and empowerment, and promoted like civic engagement and social justice, while using his platform to do that, which usually what we ask of our athletes. We ask our athletes to, when there's something wrong or something going on in the world, they can use their platform to talk about it and discuss it and kind of bring it to the forefront. And that's what Marshawn Lynch has done. He's taken his privilege, if you will, like the money he's made, the spotlight he's had, and use it in ways in order to try to better his community. And also just like he seems like just like an interesting person to hear talk. So I'm like, why would it be an issue to have him come and speak? But I guess, yeah, he has no connections to Princeton. He's, like I said, he's an athlete as opposed to like an actress who went to Princeton, or like a senator, or like a scholar, a neuroscientist, what have you. He's like a regular old athlete, and they just don't care for it. And I'm just like, hey, look, if I'm Marshawn, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, dog. Like, go somewhere where you'll be appreciated. They don't come. That's the worst. That's the worst thing you can do, is go through with something at a place that doesn't appreciate your services, because then it's just awkward. Like, like I said, no one's really that interested. People are already disinterested before you start talking. Then you start talking about, especially if you start talking about social injustice. It's not all those guys are as in tune with that stuff as he is. So they're really going to tune out. It'd just be an awkward situation. So again, and in fairness, this is just like one student. So I don't think this is like the entire student body feels like this. But the fact that even some students are being like, we don't want Marshawn Lynch, was just crazy to me, because I would love to hear Marshawn Lynch speak. Especially if he's just going to show up at my school. I don't even got to do anything. I just got to be there. I don't got to go out of my way. I don't got to pay no money. I don't got to do nothing. I just get to be there, and he's just going to speak and impart his wisdom on me. And he's been a guy that's imparted wisdom on his peers, his other players, his community. Like, why would you not want to hear? And plus, like I said, he seems like an interesting guy. Why would I not want to hear what he has to say, personally? But again, also, I'm a football fan, so there is that connection there. But maybe that's just where the disconnect is. Somehow all these guys are into football as everyone else is, or as into football as I am, or maybe even you guys listening out there are, so they don't really care for it. And they're just like, nah, I'm not really feeling it. And then, but like I said, this is a very young person thing where we're like, we don't like it, we're gonna petition, or we're gonna protest, or I mean, not protest. You should protest things that are worth protesting. But a lot of people, like, they like this is like very similar to like the petition they had with the Game of Thrones, where like, oh yeah, we don't like how it ended, we're gonna petition to have them redo the whole season. Like, what? Like, are you serious? Do you know how long it took to film that season? Like, who are you to tell people that, like, oh yeah, I don't like what you did, do it all over until I like it? Like, who are you? Since when did you become a TV critic? And granted, the way the series ended, not great. Though, I always state that if they just had 10 episodes instead of 6, it would have been fine. The 6 episodes, there's too much stuff they had to get done in a short period of time. They didn't do it right. There's a lot of things that were rushed. It could have been better in that regard. I don't disagree with that. But the petition to have them redo the whole season was absurd. And like millions, I mean, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but thousands and thousands, maybe millions of people were on board with that. And I'm saying that just, so society is now. You don't like something, you go out there and get to voice your opinion on it, just because that's the ability we have now with the different platforms we have. We can just state and tell people, like, hey, I don't like this, you should do something else, or you should redo it, you should pick another person. Like, come on, just try to listen and take in the wisdom he wants to give you. That's all. Like I'm saying, you may learn something from Marshawn that you didn't expect to learn. But you won't ever know if you come in there closed-minded. But hey, like I said, maybe I'm just a fan of Marshawn, so that's why I feel this way. But I just think if these Princeton students just came in with an open mind, they could gain something from this speech. But we'll see if he goes through with it. I mean, I hope, like I said, if it's really that serious, I hope he doesn't, because go somewhere where you're appreciated. But hopefully Princeton students can open up to the thought of having Marshawn Lynch there to speak. But that'll do it here for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys for listening, as always. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Maybe you're always on top of when we drop our stuff. If you could, please, as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Be very appreciated, very helpful. Let us see what you guys like, if you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can discuss. We can talk about why Zion should be Rookie of the Year. We can talk about why the Princeton students have a right to be mad about Marshawn Lynch being the pick. You can talk about why Nick Foles should end up back on the Eagles. All that stuff. I'm more than willing to discuss and debate with you guys, so feel free to reach out to us, at us, whatever, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, comment on the page, all that fun stuff, so we can communicate in that way. But that has been my time. I've been Chris Blades again. I want to thank you guys all for listening, and until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.